A nondescript Tuesday evening, which would normally blur into routine life, marked a pivotal moment in my narrative, altering the course of everything. I recall it clearly, standing in the kitchen, mindlessly stirring soup while the fragrant aroma of herbs and vegetables filled the space. Yet, my mind was elsewhere. My husband Luke, over dinner, had delivered a shocking revelation. His younger sister, Emma, had just graduated from law school and needed a place to stay. This wasn't just a simple request to crash on our couch for a short period. Luke had decided Emma should take over her home. "What do you mean she needs her house?" I asked, the words feeling foreign in my mouth, my voice scarcely louder than a whisper. Luke often belittled my achievements, but this audacity was unprecedented. It wasn't just favoritism towards family, it was sheer absurdity. I paused, wooden spoon hovering over the steaming soup. Trying to absorb his proposition, I noted our kitchen, once a haven of warmth and comfort, felt suddenly alien. The yellow walls I had painted seemed to close in around me, and the collection of mismatched mugs, tokens from our travels, felt like strangers observing this surreal moment. Waiting for Luke to laugh and declare it a joke, I was met with his unwavering seriousness, his intense blue eyes holding mine, making the reality of his expectation clear. "Surrender our home to Emily. Emily has a future," Luke stated matter-of-factly, as though we were discussing the weather. "What do you do, Diane? Lounge all day? This house would finally have purpose with her." His words were a physical blow. I gripped the counter, anchoring myself against the cool surface, fighting to maintain composure. Reflecting on the countless hours devoting to transforming this house into a home, the weekends gardening, the nights spent poring over magazines for interior design inspiration, his dismissal as merely lounging stung fiercely. The scent of the simmering soup, comforting like my grandmother, who bequeathed me this home long before Luke, strengthened my voice. "This house is legally mine," I declared. "I inherited it from Gran." Luke's features darkened at my defiance. The often overbearing yet calm man I married seemed to vanish, replaced by someone whose jaw clenched tightly, a muscle twitching ominously. "You're being selfish," he spat, the temperature plunging in the room, his voice rising. "Emily needs this opportunity. She's going places, while you're just here." Each word, sharp and cruel, pierced me as suppressed anger and resentment rose. I turned from him, unable to bear his face any longer, muttering no, barely audible, monumental in its quiet defiance. Retreating to clear the dishes, I sought a moment to think. That's when it happened. The slap came unanticipated, pain flaring across my cheek, sending me staggering, my hip colliding with the table's edge. Everything froze, the clocks ticking deafening in the silence. Shocked, I raised a trembling hand to my cheek, heat radiating where his hand marked. Meeting Luke's gaze, his eyes held shock and something darker. Wordlessly, I comprehended the truth. This act shattered any illusion of our marriage. "Okay," I whispered, the word tasting bitter. Without further glance, I retreated to the bedroom, closing the door gently behind. Once a sanctuary, the room now felt prison-like. Photos of Luke and me mocked me with memories of supposedly happier times. Had I deceived myself all along? In the mirror, the stark, red mark contrasted my pale skin. Though not his first outburst, something had changed irreversibly. A line crossed could not be uncrossed. Realizing my situation, Luke's disregard for me as a person, as his wife, had reached a zenith. Willing to give away my home without hesitation, my thoughts turned to Emily. We were never close, yet I tried kindness. Bright and ambitious, her potential I once admired now soured. The prospect of her invasion sickened me. Sounds of Luke's kitchen tinkering drifted. He acted unaffected, as though he hadn't just passed judgment and mark on me. That perceived normality more shocking than the slap itself. I lay back on the bed, thoughts swirling. Confronting Luke again seemed nauseating, yet relinquishing. Accepting his decree felt equally unfathomable. As night wore on, alone in the room, my mind raced. Luke never checked nor apologized, the physical and emotional chasm felt insurmountable. At dawn's first light, I resolved, terrifying yet liberating, I could not stay. The years had gradually faded me. I would reclaim myself, rediscover who I was before Luke eroded confidence and self-worth. Quietly, I moved, nervous hands retrieving an old suitcase from clutter. Once bought for vacation dreams unfulfilled. Now serving a new purpose. Packing essential items, a plan formed. It wouldn't be easy, but worthwhile things seldom are. Mindful, I glanced at the door, half expecting Luke's intrusion. Yet silence prevailed. The house seemed to hold its breath as I cautiously took steps toward freedom. The breaking point passed. It was time for action. Days followed. Surreal, as if the house whispered. Face tender from the blow. My resolve grew. Luke stopped apologizing, sharing plans of Emma's move, confident my silence equated acceptance. I played my role, nodding as necessary, moving undisturbed. To any observer, my outward calm seemed to signal acquiescence. Inwardly, emotions and plans were turbulent. At night, awake, I executed preparations for departure. Not fleeing in weakness, but strategic withdrawal from soul exhaustion. Stealthily, I gathered books, jewelry overshadowed by essentials, important documents discreetly removed. Meticulously, I packed small increments, ensuring a discreet exit unalarming, balanced between reclaiming enough to begin anew without raising alarms. Each quiet night brought more clarity. Daily, maintaining appearance of normality by cooking and cleaning, listening to Luke's chatter, gazing around, cataloging what I'd take or leave. The house, once warm and filled with memories, now alien. Touching our wedding photos frame, I felt sadness not for Luke or marriage's loss, but for a future once potential. Washing dishes one sunny afternoon, light played on Grandma's china in the cabinet. Thoughts drifted whether Emily would use them or understand their stories. Drying hands, I recalled the fading bruise. Determined, I vowed not to let anyone else define my narrative. That night, decisive action commenced. While Luke was deeply focused on a football game, I secretly headed to our home office. With trembling hands, I accessed our shared bank account and directed a substantial part of our savings to a new account I had opened without Luke's knowledge. I wasn't trying to leave him destitute, just ensuring enough for my new journey. As days passed, I became acutely aware of Luke's every move in the house. Each footstep and closing door. Every sigh heightened my anxiety. I feared he might uncover my intentions too soon, but he remained absorbed in excitement over Emily's impending arrival, oblivious to the changes unfolding. About 5 days after Luke announced Emily's visit, I overheard him on the phone with her. He was in his study, the door slightly open, and his voice carried down the hallway. "Everything's set, Em," he said cheerfully. "Diane's been great about it. Like I said, she'd come around." Leaning against the wall, heart pounding, I realized he had no clue about my inner turmoil.
To him,
I was the dutiful wife who complied with his wishes. The urge to confront him was strong, but I restrained myself, sticking to my plan. Patience, I reminded myself, just a little more time. That night, while Luke slept soundly, I lay awake, moonlight casting eerie shadows through the curtains. I pondered the life I'd leave behind, the highs and lows, and the friends and neighbors I'd miss. Would they understand my decision, or would Luke's version paint me as the villain? As dawn approached, I concluded my preparations. I had slowly packed clothes and personal items into my car over recent days, leaving a few last tasks. I penned a letter to my closest friend Sarah, explaining everything, and asked her to watch for a package I'd send containing my cherished possessions, safeguarded from Luke discovery. I placed the letter in my purse, planning to mail it as I left town. Next, I roamed the house one final time, whispering silent goodbyes to each room. In the living room, I paused by the bookshelf, my fingers trailing along beloved books. So many memories nestled within those pages. I selected a few favorites, packing them with care. In the kitchen, I hesitated by the china cabinet, my grandmother's dishes gleaming in early light. For a moment, I considered taking them, but decided to let Emily have them, leaving her to muse over their history. As the sun climbed higher, urgency propelled me. Luke's wake time neared, and I needed to leave before then. A last glance at the bedroom revealed Luke, serene in sleep. Despite everything, a part of me ached, recalling all we'd shared. Laughter, tears, dreams for the future. Yet those dreams scattered, eroded by small cruelties and one last unforgivable act. Grabbing my purse and the box of books, I headed downstairs. At the front door, I paused, hand hovering over the polished wood. This was it, a moment of no return. A bittersweet smile crossed my lips as I turned the lock for the final time. But one task remained. I penned a short, firm note and left it near the coffee maker for Luke to find. Without a backward glance, I stepped into the crisp morning air. The street lay quiet, most neighbors still asleep or stirring. I walked to my car, parked a block away to avoid suspicion, and started the engine. As I drove away, our house, Luke's house, faded in the rearview mirror, unchanged. The blue shutters I painstakingly painted last summer, the flowering boxes, the home sweet home, matte. None of it felt like home anymore. Facing the road ahead, full of unknowns, I breathed deeply. A mix of fear and exhilaration. I may not know where I was heading or the challenges awaiting me, but freedom was finally mine. As I left familiar streets for the highway, a weight lifted. The quiet exit I'd planned was complete. It was time for my new chapter, on my own terms. When Emily's car pulled into the driveway of what she thought was her new home, the sun stood high in the sky. The two-story colonial with blue shutters and blooming flower boxes appeared just as she remembered. Taking a deep breath of fresh-cut grass and roses, she felt excitement surge. Years of law school, sleepless nights, and bar exam stress finally paid off. Luke's generosity provided a beautiful start to this new chapter. Emily. Luke's voice boomed as he emerged from the house, grinning. Rushing forward, Emily hugged him. Thank you so much. I can't believe it's real. Luke chuckled, patting her back. Believe it, kiddo, you earned it. Now, let's get you settled in. As they entered, Emily's eyes roamed, absorbing details. The bright entryway with an elegant mirror and fresh flowers. Gleaming hardwood floors, more beautiful than she recalled. Where's Diane? She asked, wanting to thank her. A flicker of discomfort crossed Luke's face, but vanished quickly. She's gone, he replied flatly. This was best for everyone. Surprised but not pressing, Emily told herself the tension she sensed between them had been normal marital stress. Now, she wondered if there was more. Still, excitement overshadowed doubts. Let me show you around, Luke resumed cheerfully. Though, I'm sure you'll redecorate to your taste. Touring the house, he shared anecdotes, but Emily couldn't shake a growing unease. The house was immaculate, but felt empty, as if its soul was gone. In the master bedroom, unease deepened. The closet, with empty hangers and half-open, clearly emptied drawers. Luke, she said slowly, where are Diane's things? Shrugging, he avoided her eyes. She took what she needed, said she wanted to make room for you. Confusion and guilt replaced Emily's excitement. This didn't feel right. Had she been so enveloped in joy that she ignored Diane's situation? Are you sure Diane was okay with this? She asked. Maybe I should find my own place. Don't be ridiculous. Luke cut her off sharply. This is your home. Diane understood it was best for all. His demeanor turned practical again. Start unpacking. I'll order dinner. Still uneasy, Emily nodded, beginning the move-in process. She fetched suitcases from the car, feeling strange as she hung clothes in what was Diane's closet. In the bathroom, the solitary toothbrush and vacant spots where Diane's things used to be deepened her unease. The house seemed arranged perfectly, yet devoid of warmth. Emily tried dismissing her feelings, reminding that she should be thankful, not questioning Luke's generosity. As the afternoon wore on, settling in continued. Her law books found a place in the study. Laptop set, law degree displayed. She'd worked hard for this. Why did it feel wrong? A doorbell startled her. "I'll get it," she called to Luke in the kitchen. Answering, she found a middle-aged woman holding a dish. "Oh," the woman said, surprised. "I was expecting Diane. I'm Margaret, from next door. I brought a casserole. I always make extra on Wednesdays." Emily's heart sank. "I'm Emily, Luke's sister. I'm staying here now. Diane's gone." A mix of surprise, confusion, and understanding crossed Margaret's face. "I see," she said quietly. "Well, welcome, Emily. I hope you enjoy the casserole." As Emily took it, she noted Margaret's eyes searching past her into the house. "Thank you," she replied, feeling increasingly uneasy. "Very kind of you." Emily closed the door with a sigh, leaning against it as Margaret's reassuring figure disappeared. The casserole in her hands felt like a weight, a reminder of the life now disrupted around her. Setting it down in the kitchen, Emily found Luke preoccupied with his phone. Without looking up, he asked who had visited. It was Margaret, the neighbor. "She brought a casserole for Diane," Emily replied, placing the dish on the counter. "Luke," she began, but he cut her off, excitedly saying, "The movers can come tomorrow to clear out Diane's things. We'll have the place all to ourselves soon." Emily wanted to question Diane's sudden absence, but Luke's focus had already shifted to mundane weekend plans. She felt carried away by his enthusiasm, her concerns temporarily set aside. In the evening, while searching for plates for dinner, Emily stumbled upon a beautiful, albeit chipped, china set. She pondered their history, imagining Diane cherishing these dishes, the thought sparking an unknown emotion within her. Only when setting the table did Emily spot the letter, its elegant handwriting unmistakably Diane's. "Luke," she called excitedly, "there's a letter from Diane for me." Assuming it to be welcoming or advising, Emily eagerly opened it, her fingers trembling. But as she read, her heart sank. Diane's calm yet furious words shattered Emily's illusions. The house, never Luke's to give, had been sold. The new owners would arrive tomorrow. The letter slipped from Emily's hand, and she cried out for Luke, who read it with growing anger. "What does she mean sold?" he yelled, crumpling the paper in fury. Diane had left no trace, not even an address, severing all ties. Luke's rage exploded, smashing a vase, leaving Emily in despair, the dream of a new start crumbling. The neighbors peeked through windows at the commotion, while Emily realized she'd been misled. Luke paced, unnerved, his anger replaced by unfamiliar fear. A knock at the door startled them, revealing Margaret and other concerned neighbors. Luke attempted to reassure them with guarded explanations, but Emily's honest admissions softened their suspicions. After they left, Emily insisted they discuss the situation. Returning to the kitchen, she cleaned the shattered vase while Luke reread the letter, its harsh truths echoing. Diane's grievances, years of feeling like a secondary presence in her own home, had culminated in this sharp goodbye. Emily's heart ached for Diane, for her brother, and for the fractured family dynamic. She gently questioned Luke about Diane's decision. Luke admitted the house was Diane's inheritance, and he'd mistakenly assumed she'd sacrifice it for his family. Realizing his error, Emily asked, "What now?" Luke, overwhelmed, said reaching their lawyer might help, but the future felt uncertain and uprooted. Emily reviewed the letter again, grappling with the profound change in their lives. The essence of Diane's words lingered with her. It wasn't a sudden choice, but a meticulously planned decision, possibly over weeks or even months. As this thought consumed Emily, her eyes were drawn to the china cabinet. The beautiful blue-patterned dishes she had once admired seemed to taunt her now. They were Diane's, likely family treasures. Emily pondered whether Diane had thought of taking them, or if leaving them behind was a final message for Luke. From the study, Luke's elevated voice could be heard. Snippets of legal jargon, threats of lawsuits, and demands for information filtered through, yet beneath it all was a thread of desperation that tugged at Emily's heart. She stood, drawn to the window, the world outside quiet, though lights were on in several homes. Were the neighbors talking, speculating about Diane's sudden departure? Emily felt vulnerable, as if the walls had turned transparent. A car crawled down the street, and Emily tensed, wondering if it was new owners claiming their property or perhaps Diane reconsidering. But the car passed, and Emily exhaled. Unaware, she had been holding her breath. Luke's voice rose again, the phrase, "What do you mean it's ironclad? There must be something we can do." Clear in the air. Emily sank back into her chair, the gravity of their situation bearing down on her. This house, which hours earlier had symbolized her hopeful future, now felt like a snare. Every memory held within its corners wasn't hers. Every surface a reminder of a life she had inadvertently disturbed. As night unfolded, Emily and Luke stayed suspended in limbo, moving ghost-like in the house, unable to settle or plan. The letter on the kitchen table was an accusation neither could face. Around midnight, exhaustion claimed them. Luke on the living room couch, Emily to the guest room, unable to invade Diane's bed. Laying there, staring at the ceiling, Emily's mind raced. How did everything unravel so swiftly? That morning brimming with hope, now she was adrift, her future uncertain as ever. Thoughts of Diane lingered. Where was she now? Triumphant, relieved, or regretful? Despite the turmoil, Emily admired Diane's boldness. As dawn crept in, Emily resolved she couldn't stay in a home marred by resentment and misunderstanding. Her path needed to stray from the tangled web of her brother's marriage. This decision offered some peace as she slipped into a restless sleep. As if relieved, the house sighed in the early morning quiet, its secrets exposed. The letter on the kitchen table rustling in the breeze, its message done. The next family chapter lay unwritten, but one certainty remained. Nothing would ever be the same. As harsh morning light spilled mundane relief, Luke and Emily stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed. Reality struck fresh as the letter lay heavy on the table, a quiet testament to their upheaval. Luke's actions were mechanical as he reached for the coffee maker. "I couldn't sleep," he murmured, avoiding Emily's gaze. Kept thinking there must be a way out. Emily slipped into a chair. Watching him, the anger of the previous night replaced by a hollow shell of the man she knew. "What did the lawyer say?" she dreaded asking. Luke turned, shoulders slumped, coffee forgotten. "It's ironclad," he whispered. Diane owned it outright. She had every right. The finality hung heavy between them, Emily's throat tightening. "What do we do now?" Before he could reply, a knock made them both jump. A middle-aged couple stood on the porch, their expressions a blend of excitement and awkwardness. "Hi, I'm Tom, and this is Sarah. We're the new owners," the man said, extending a hand. Luke, pale, shook it tersely. "Luke," he said. "My sister, Emily." Sarah's smile faltered, eyes darting between them in confusion. "We're sorry for the confusion. We had no idea," Tom added. Emily stepped forward, masking her unease. "It's not your fault," she said, her voice steady. "We're the ones who should apologize. We'll be out soon." Tom nodded, relieved. "We don't want to rush you, but our lease ends tomorrow." Luke, silent, sprang into action. "Of course, give us a few hours." After they left to their car, promising to return, Luke leaned against the door. "A few hours? How?" Emily felt determination surge within her. It wasn't how she imagined starting anew, but resilience coursed through her. "We'll manage," she affirmed. Frantic activity ensued, Emily and Luke moving like whirlwinds, packing with urgency. Another pause came at the china cabinet. "Luke," she called, pointing to the dishes. They were Diane's, weren't they? Luke appeared unreadable. "Leave them, her grandmother's," he agreed. Emily closed the cabinet, sadness washing over her. Those dishes, like the house, spoke of a history she would never share. By afternoon, their belongings were packed, the house echoing emptily. Luke made a last call to the lawyer, but the news was unchanged. As they carried the last boxes to their cars, neighbors gathered, curious. Emily caught fragments of their speculations. Margaret, yesterday's amiable neighbor, approached. "Is everything all right?" she inquired, concerned. Before Luke could speak, Emily smoothly intervened. "We've had a change of plans," she smiled. "Life's unpredictable." Margaret nodded, unconvinced. "If you need anything, you know where to find us." Tom and Sarah returned with a moving truck, excitement clashing with Luke and Emily's gloom. "All set?" Tom asked, caught between sympathy and eagerness. Luke nodded, handing over the keys. "It's yours," he said, voice flat. As they watched the new occupants, Emily realized she hadn't considered future plans. "Where will you go?" she quietly asked. Luke ran a hand through his hair, frustration all too familiar. "A friend's couch for now." "You?" Emily thought of her tiny city apartment. "Back to mine. It's small but paid for this month." Silence enveloped them as their reality settled in. Everything had changed so rapidly. "I'm sorry," Luke broke, emotion heavy. "I never meant this." Emily squeezed his hand. "We'll figure it out," she assured. As they prepared to part ways, Emily thought of Diane, pondering the chaos left behind. "Luke," she said, "we owe Diane an apology." His face hardened, but he relented. "Maybe," he agreed. "But first, we sort our lives." With final glances at their former hopes and dreams, they parted. As Emily drove away, she saw Tom and Sarah in her mirror, arms around each other, embracing their new beginning. As Emily watched her possessions being moved in, she felt a brief envy, quickly replaced by a wave of determination. This wasn't the end, she reassured herself. Just a setback and an opportunity. It was a chance to start fresh, to create a life crafted by her own values. As she drove away from the neighborhood and the dreams she once had, Emily silently vowed to herself that she would learn, grow, and one day own a home founded on honesty, respect, and genuine understanding. The aftermath of Diane's letter hadn't fully played out. More challenges, tough conversations, and difficult decisions awaited her, but Emily, as she merged onto the highway toward her small city apartment, felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever the future brought, she would confront it head-on with the resilience that had seen her through law school. Perhaps this unexpected turn of events would open the door to a future brighter than she had ever envisioned. As the sun rose over a bustling city street, Diane stood at her small apartment's window, a steaming cup warming her hands. The city view was vastly different from the tranquil suburban landscape she'd left, yet the city's lively hum filled her with a possibility she hadn't felt in years. It had been 3 weeks since she stepped away from her old life, leaving behind a home full of memories and a stifling marriage. The first days blurred with emotions, relief, fear, exhilaration, and doubt, whirling like a dizzying cocktail. But as days went by, Diane found herself settling into a new rhythm, one solely her own. Her new place was modest, starkly different from the spacious home she'd shared with Luke, but Diane felt proud of the space she carefully curated. Every item chosen by her, every decision independent of anyone else's opinion, the freedom was intoxicating. Diane placed her coffee down, moved to the desk in her living room corner, and booted her laptop, mentally prepping for the day ahead. Finding a job at her age, with a resume marked by gaps from years as a homemaker, proved challenging, but Diane was undeterred. She had skills, experience, and, most importantly, a newfound resolve. As she scrolled through job listings, her mind wandered back to the day she left. She wondered about Luke's reaction to her letter. Was he angry, surprised? Or had he anticipated it? And thinking of Emily, Diane felt a twinge of guilt. She never intended to disrupt the young woman's life, but didn't regret prioritizing herself. A notification on her screen cut through her thoughts. An email confirmed her home's sale was finalized. The note attached, conveying that the new owners loved the house and planned to start a family there, lumped Diane's throat. Leaning back in her chair, emotions mingled within her. Gladness for the house's new lease of life, an ache for the dreams she once held, and, ultimately, closure. It was no longer her burden or prison, but someone else's new beginning. With renewed focus, Diane returned to job searching, applying to several local businesses and nonprofits by mid-morning. Just as she was about to log off, an ad caught her eye: volunteers needed at Oj Community Center to empower women in need. The ad resonated with her, and before second-guessing, she called the number listed. An hour later, Diane was in front of the weathered brick building, conflicting nerves and excitement stirring in her stomach. The woman who greeted her offered a warm, soothing smile. "You must be Diane," she said, hand extended.
"I'm Gloria."
"We're delighted you called, always eager for help around here." As Gloria led Diane through the center, she felt a spark she hadn't in a long time: purpose. The center provided services supporting women's various challenges: job training, counseling, childcare, and support groups for domestic violence or career change victims. "Most volunteers have faced tough times themselves," Gloria explained, helping them relate to the women we serve. Diane nodded, reflecting on her own story: years of invisibility, dismissed opinions, and losing herself in Luke's shadow. She recalled the strength it took to leave, choosing herself over the comfort of an unhappy marriage. "I think I might have something to offer," Diane softly spoke, to which Gloria's smile broadened. "I think you just might." Over weeks, Diane's days found a routine: mornings for job hunting and afternoons at the community center. She started with administrative tasks, but soon felt drawn to the women passing through. Each story she heard resonated with her, and sharing her own journey often helped others find courage for change. One afternoon, while aiding a young mother with job applications, Diane glimpsed herself in a wall mirror. The woman she saw was different from the one who left the suburb. This Diane stood taller, eyes brighter, smiles more genuine, her bruises tangible and emotional, healing. That evening, walking home from the center, Diane detoured through a small park. The sunset painted the sky, and she sat on a bench watching dog walkers and joggers in their worlds. For the first time since leaving, she let herself ponder Luke and the life left behind. Did he reach out or grasp why she left? She hoped he did, that it made him reflect. Though part knew it didn't matter anymore, Luke's journey was his own, and this new life was hers. A young couple passed by, hand in hand, their faces adorned with joy and love. And Diane felt not jealousy but hope. Perhaps she'd find such a partnership, based on mutual respect and understanding, but for now, she cherished her own company. She was rediscovering herself, removing layers of compromise to find the woman she always was. It wasn't easy. Loneliness loomed at times, the challenge of restarting in her 50s daunting. Yet, those moments lessened as the sun's last rays faded and Diane rose from the bench. Tomorrow promised a busy agenda, a morning interview, and an afternoon support group to lead. Anticipation replacing dread. Walking back, peace enveloped her amid the city's vibrant possibilities. She was not naive to expect flawlessness. Challenges and doubts awaited. Yet, for the first time in years, Diane felt fortified for whatever life delivered her way. Climbing her apartment stairs, her phone buzzed. A text from Gloria at the center relayed gratitude from group women inspired by Diane's story. Reading it, warmth spread through her chest, knowing she was making a difference. Not only for others but for herself too. Each day moved her further from the old life towards one she was crafting herself. Entering her place, Diane noted how it felt like home already, not just in physicality, but in the safety and freedom it signified. Here she was unrestrained, making choices, living on her terms. As she prepared for sleep, a small box caught her eye in the closet, a few mementos from her past with Luke. She'd brought them unsure of their role in her new chapter. Kneeling, Diane sifted through them, recognizing memories they held, some painful, some bittersweet, but now merely parts of her story. They no longer defined her. Smiling, she closed the box, tucked it away, focusing on new memories to build. As sleep embraced her, Diane felt thankful for the strength she'd discovered within, the new connections forming, and the chance to redefine herself. Tomorrow promised new possibilities, ready for Diane to embrace.